4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll have more on this tomorrow. Before we get to Jill Tahmooressi right here, I just want to, John Kerry was speaking the other day, and among other things, he said that I always get a little uptight when I hear politicians say how exceptional we are. Really, John? Not because we're not exceptional, but because it's kind of in your face, and a lot of other people are exceptional. A lot of other places do exceptional things. If everybody's exceptional, Mr. Secretary, then nobody's exceptional. If we are exceptional, that means we are exceptional compared to others. They really have a problem. All right, I want you to listen to this plea on the floor of the House regarding Andrew Tahmooressi. Then we'll go to his mom. Watch and listen.
Andrew's mistake was taking a wrong turn. The administration's mistake is to let him languish in Mexican prisons where he faced threats and abuses. President Obama and Vice President Biden both had opportunities to demand his release, but they shirked their responsibilities and their obligations to this young man and his family. Mr. Speaker, it is time to bring our Marine home now.
All right, folks. I'll second that. I'll third that. And I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, will as well. And I know our next guest will do the same, Jill Tahmooressi. We welcome back the mother of Marine Sgt. Andrew Tahmooressi. Jill, good to talk to you. But as I said to you off the air earlier, too bad we have to keep talking.
Absolutely. It still baffles me as to why we're going on our 106th day, almost a third of a year.
It is horrific. You know, I recently saw the video of the ride, I think Greta did it, that your son took on that highway that led him to, forced him to make the wrong turn because there are barricades. You think, you know, they got dividers in the road, and if you get in the wrong lane, you got to get into Mexico. You can't get over to the right to avoid getting into Mexico because there are barriers keeping you in that lane, and that's what he found himself in, that wrong lane. And as soon as he got into Mexico and realized where he was and what had happened, he called 911. And that heartbreaking, when you hear that heartbreaking, and I don't blame the 911 operator, she's doing her job, but when she said, "Are you in Mexico now?" and he said, "Yes," she said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you because you're not on American soil." I mean, that sent chills up and down my spine.
Absolutely. That puts on a new meaning to the word highway robbery. I mean, literally, you get roped in with a point of no return, and in my mind, kidnap and extortion. So
you look at it as your son being kidnapped?
Well, he immediately, I mean, he stopped at the green light. Tried to get the Mexican official sitting in a tower 2 lanes over to help him. He was trying to tell her, "How do I turn around?" and she was screaming out in Spanish and flagging her arm, you know, demanding him to go further south, which takes you into Mexico. And then with the first person that does stop him, a customs agent from Mexico, he says, "I made a wrong turn, ended up here by mistake. I've got 3 guns in my car. Help me turn around." And he was, you know, gonna flag over an escort vehicle, but that changed very sadly when the military came on board.
And where's
so in my sense,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So in my sense, yeah, they confiscated him and all of his possessions against his will when he had no intentions of being at that spot at that time.
And the extortion part, I mean...
well, extortion from a sense of where's his belongings, where's his truck, you know, where's all of his possessions that was in his truck. That's why he had his 3 legally purchased firearms in his truck, because he had everything he owned in his truck. So where's the truck, where's the possessions, where's his guns?
Talk about the latest court proceeding, which was last week, and we had all hoped to see him walk out of there a free man, or if not free to go home, at least free to leave prison and then come back. But again, he was ordered back to prison. What was your reaction to that? How disappointed were you, and how disappointed was he?
Despondent. I was very worried for him. It was a 7-hour grueling hearing, the most barbaric of conditions. If you can imagine a 10-foot by 8-foot room, he's behind a cage, he's behind bars, yet somehow they managed 12 people standing up in coats and ties for 7 hours. It was just something out of like the Twilight Zone. I wasn't allowed in, even though it's supposed to be a public hearing. The judge didn't allow me in, but he was highly despondent. That's why I immediately asked for his pastor to visit him the next day and the State Department to visit him, because I was very worried for his well-being.
Well, he told Greta, I know you addressed this the other night with her, he told Greta that he's in good spirits, etc. But you think he's just trying to put a good spin on that, and he's more like as you just described, correct?
Well, he was highly disappointed, because all along for 90 days, we're always told it's the judge who can release you. It's the judge who's the person in between your incarceration and freedom. So when that didn't happen on Wednesday, July 9th, it was an extremely sad day. Now we're on, a week later. Pastor Lewis, has visited him for extensive time. He does rely on his faith to give him strength. So last night when he spoke to Greta, he was centered back, and he was, looking towards the future, optimistic about the August 4th evidentiary hearing, which we hope to God will be the second and the last, so that Mr. Benitez can move forward with a strategy of demanding a mistrial due to violations of human rights. When you described what he went through at that hearing, I had no idea that it was so medieval in nature. So it breaks my heart even more. But it also just builds the outrage within me that I've already had, and you've expressed some. And, if I was the parent in your position, God forbid, I would probably try to put a lid on it a little bit also. But that this president is more interested, that Sergeant Bergdahl, who probably, according to all the evidence we've seen, is a deserter. And under the rules, if he's convicted of desertion at a certain level, he could be shot for that. He's now free to roam around a base. They told us this guy was near death. That's why they had to trade 5 Taliban guys for him. That's why they couldn't go to Congress with the deal. He was so close to death, and now he's back to normal, quote unquote. And he's walking around a base, a free man, pending further investigation. And this president cares more about that, apparently, than getting an active duty Marine out of the prison of a supposed ally. I don't know if I could contain myself the way you do. And I have to say, it's really, probably the most frustrating part is we're delaying his recovery for what he legitimately has is PTSD. Now, are the symptoms manifesting in a Mexican jail? Not necessarily. One, because the triggers aren't there. He's in isolation. His triggers was noise and crowd because of his combat experience in Afghanistan. His triggers was feeling like he was prey, and hence the hypervigilance to self-defense. Those triggers aren't afforded to him, and that's good in a Mexican jail. It was in La Mesa. He was in an enemy camp being brutalized and threatened to be killed by the inmates and the guards. But now he's in El Hongo in a private cell, isolated, so, lacking the triggers that his PTSD symptoms might bring on. But we need to get him home because he's not going to be isolated in America. And we need to get him back on course with his PTSD. So human rights violation, because Mexico is not equipped to take care of combat-related PTSD.
I know you've gotten a lot of support in Congress and virtually no support, maybe a little lip service from the administration. Would it be helpful to you to go down to the White House and bring the media? Would it be or try to crash a White House briefing or something? Any desperate measure?
Well, I know that there's been at least a dozen times where Sergeant Andrew Tahmooressi was brought up during the daily White House briefings. What is the White House doing to gain his freedom? And that's why I purposefully had a specific privacy notice signed by Andrew that would allow the State Department to say anything about him, because at first they would say it's a private matter. So I sent forward his release that the State Department can say anything they wish, but still silence. I mean, so it has been on the floor of the White House briefing room.
Yeah.
So it's not as if the White House doesn't know. We've got the We the People. I'm certain that President Obama must have staff that look at that petition site. Well, we met the threshold requiring a response.
Yeah.
On May 30th, but still silent.
I remember. That
Still
was a
silent.
while ago.
Yes.
Jill, God bless you, and you know that you're in the prayers of almost every American, and
Thank you. And if I can just say, AndrewFreedomFund.com, just for a 3-minute
absolutely,
video,
AndrewFreedomFund.com. Absolutely, everybody, folks, go
any
to
way
there.
Any way you can help, even if it's trading off a cup of coffee, because he is going to lose his entire life savings.
Gotcha. Jill, God bless you. Thank you. Jill Tahmooressi, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We're coming back, and we're going to talk about Israel. Don't go away.